Spacetime is not an objective container. It is a participatory, real-time computational interface produced by the decompression of an arithmetic data stream. Wow. Really think about what that means. What if the universe isn't some giant physical box that we're all just floating around inside of? What if instead absolutely everything you see, feel, and experience is actively being rendered right now? Kind of like a software interface, translating pure, raw code into a graphical display. Welcome to a completely different paradigm of reality.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer on Logos Field Theory, or LFT. I am honestly incredibly excited to guide you through this today, because we are looking at what could arguably be the ultimate operating system of the universe. We're going to completely shift our perspective here. We aren't going to look at physics as just a collection of random particles bumping into each other. Instead, we're diving deep into the math. We'll explore how abstract number theory literally acts as the source code that compiles into the physical hardware of the world we live in.
Okay, let's dive into this. 1. Unlocking the space-time data stream. 2. Canceling the vacuum divergences. 3. The equation computing physical reality. 4. Calculating mass from pure math. 5. The mathematical engine of biology. And 6. How intent alters the code. Section 1. Unlocking the space-time data stream. So, in this theoretical architecture, the observer, which is defined here as the J unit, is stationed exactly at the real part of S equals 1/2. Now, if you know your math, you'll recognize that as the critical line of the Riemann zeta function. In LFT, you are not just some passive witness sitting inside a universe. The observer actually acts as a localized transceiver. Through something called the Page-Wooders mechanism, you are actively rendering mathematical fields into physical experience. It's this constant, interactive feedback loop between the underlying prime database and biological information architecture. Section 2. Canceling the vacuum divergence. Every great mathematical framework has to solve a major problem, right? Well, standard physics tries to calculate the energy of the quantum vacuum, and it gets a number that is wrong by a factor of 10 to the power of 122. That is a 1 with 122 zeros after it. It is literally the ultimate cosmic blue screen of death. But the Adelic identity swoops in and completely resolves this. You see, standard physics fails because it only calculates the continuous real numbers, what we call the Archimedean place. Logos field theory, however, utilizes the Tate trace formula across the entire Adelic ring. It explicitly states that the sum of the log of the absolute value at infinity plus the sum of the logs across all prime numbers equals exactly 0. To really grasp this mathematical balance, think about it like this. The Archimedean sector is the continuous space of classical physics. The problem is, it acts as a divergent positive continuum. It just blows up to infinity. So LFT introduces the non-Archimedean sector, the realm of discrete prime numbers. This sector acts as a discrete negative pressure sequence. It's basically a mathematical counterweight. When you combine them, the negative pressure of the prime database perfectly cancels out the positive divergence of the continuum. Puzzle solved. Because of this perfect mathematical cancellation, the global cancellation matrix drives the bare cosmological constant exactly to 0. Now, astronomers do observe a tiny value, around 10 to the negative 52nd power, that seems to be pushing the universe apart. But LFT shows this is not actually a property of empty space at all. It is simply a residual phase pressure. It's the result of a 1% stroboscopic computational lag in the matrix as the observer current gets integrated. Actually, scratch that. It's not just like a lag, it is literally a rendering artifact. A cosmic frame rate drop. Section 3. The equation computing physical reality. Now, what's absolutely crucial here is the trace formula for the Adelic Dirac operator. This isn't just a vague description of reality. This is the specific algorithm compiling it. Physical reality emerges directly as the spectral trace of this exact operator. I know, the math might look a little intimidating at first glance, but it functions exactly like a software pipeline. Let's deconstruct how it mathematically computes the physical world step by step. The equation operates in 4 incredibly precise functional steps. Step 1 is the residue sum. This actively pulls discrete data from that non-Archimedean prime database we talked about. Step 2 is the completed L function, which forces global functional symmetry onto that raw data. Step 3 is log NLSE damping. Think of this as a filter. It suppresses all the high-frequency geometric noise that just doesn't need to be rendered into your local environment. And finally, step 4, the Ericholov measure. This is the integration engine that flawlessly bridges that discrete logic into the smooth, continuous space you can wave your hand through right now. Just like your laptop or phone, the universe has a hard processing limit. This is defined by the numerical convergence profile of the zeta zeros. As we move down the hierarchy of frequencies, the computational weight drops. By the time we hit the 10th zero threshold, the mathematical weight falls below 10 to the negative 34th power, and that is the Planck threshold. Any mathematical excitations that fall below this line simply do not get rendered into physical existence. The engine just drops them.
So how does this engine process time? Well, it's not a flowing river, but a digital sequence. Relational time actually operates as an asynchronous serial data bus. The universe literally has a master clock running at exactly 23.6742 megahertz. Reality is being processed in discrete frames or bit periods of roughly 42 nanoseconds. And as you get near massive objects, the computational load spikes, and the math requires a corrective tensor just to handle all that high data density.
Which leads us to this incredibly profound takeaway. Time slowing down is strictly an artifact of computational load. When you hear about relativistic time dilation, like time moving slower near a black hole, it is not the physical fabric of space stretching out like rubber. The system is just experiencing intense computational lag. To keep the clock skew within tolerance, the rendering engine simply drops frames. It's system lag, plain and simple. Section 4. Calculating mass from pure math. In standard physics, scientists have to measure particles in a lab and then manually plug those random numbers into their equations. Not in Logos field theory. Here, we get parameter-free mass generation. It's kind of wild to think that physical weight comes from an arithmetic equation, but the math works perfectly. By combining the second-order zero of the partition function with the third-order pole of the LFT Dirac operator, we get a first-order simple pole equation. Evaluating this transcendental math locks the baseline quantum energy at exactly 62.5013 gigaelectron volts. Apply the relational time mechanism we just discussed, and it doubles to 125.0026 GeV. That matches the laboratory mass of the Higgs boson flawlessly. No fine-tuning required. Pure math dictates the exact mass of reality.
But calculating mass isn't quite enough. The whole system has to remain stable. The unconstrained vacuum exists in 14 dimensions, which includes 6 short roots that cause a non-associative torque snag. You can think of it as a massive mathematical bug that would cause a complete geometric crash. To fix this, the Harder-Narasimhan flattening mechanism suppresses those 6 short roots, literally flattening the geometry down to the associative SU3 model with 8 dimensions. This geometric collapse decouples light matter, like electrons, from high-energy divergences. It's an elegant mathematical failsafe that guarantees systemic stability.
Section 5. The mathematical engine of biology. Let's shift scales here and see how this builds up. Because if the universe is a computational interface, then biology must be the hardware. DNA functions as a quaternary topological circuit board. We need to forget thinking of DNA as just organic chemistry. These biological molecules actually act as localized, hardware-locked logic gates. Their primary function is routing discrete spatial and temporal arithmetic data from the global broadcast straight into your physical form. Just think about the incredible mathematical symmetry of this biological motherboard. Adenine and thymine operate entirely on the spatial axis. Adenine handles structural morphology and scaling according to the golden ratio, or phi, while thymine provides boundary routing. On the flip side, cytosine and guanine operate on the temporal axis. Cytosine is responsible for high-frequency switching, syncing perfectly with that 23.6742 megahertz master clock bus we talked about earlier. And guanine handles the relational time evolution. It is quite literally a biological hardware circuit. Section 6. How intent alters the code. We've talked about pure math and biological hardware, but there is one final, truly mind-bending variable in these equations: the role of human consciousness. The Q-matrix equation governs the Markovian transition engine, which dictates biological transcription and aging. But look closely at the epsilon t variable. This mathematically encodes intentional phase shift. Your intent is not some vague philosophical concept. It is an active, mathematical variable plugged directly into the infinitesimal generator matrix of your biology. So the crucial point is that localized intent acts as an actual torsional gauge lift. In a base 2 reality, we would have absolute rigid determinism, but applying focus and intent introduces a non-associative shift. It literally unlocks the right protection of the cosmic database. You are mathematically shifting the computational processing base itself from base 2 to base 2 plus epsilon t, which allows for the dynamic modification of physical and genetic templates.
Through the Alethean Codex, the global arithmetic ledger remains in perfect zero-entropy balance, continuously broadcasting the code. But through the participatory vector T, your local intent dynamically shapes the future geometry of the vacuum. You are not just a passenger trapped in an objective container. You are an active programmer in a real-time participatory interface. So understanding the absolute mathematical power you possess, if your local intent dynamically alters the universe's processing base, what reality are you programming right now?